Hi everyone, my name is James Feeney. Welcome to or back to my channel. I just wanted to hop on and make a video today. It's on some well the title will let you know, but I'm not entirely sure what direction this is going to go in or if I'm actually going to end up posting it, just because I think that this subject matter and opinions related to it are um, could be very polarizing, and it's not something that is super widely agreed upon. It's definitely like, I wouldn't call it a bone of contention, but just it's a loaded topic. So if you're seeing it, I guess I got up the courage or felt strongly enough about what I ended up saying and decided to post it. So um, I guess I'll just jump right in with I'm not really sure where I want to jump in, but essentially I want to discuss masculinity in the spiritual sphere, and this idea or inclination to make a video on this was mostly stemmed from um, a realization that occurred when I was making my 7 guides response video. In just that there are a lot of uh, wonderful, great feminine based decks: divine feminine, goddess, motherhood, uh, nurturing type decks, and I own a lot of them. I have like the Dark Goddess Tarot, the Goddess Tarot, Weaver's Oracle. I have a lot of them, and I really thoroughly enjoy those decks, and I think that there's always room for more, like the Mother Piece and Medicine Woman and all of those. Such wonderful creations and things that are super necessary and vital, I think. So this is not going to be a video advocating for less of that, if anything, more of it, and just in addition to that, hopefully some more content and creations that are inspired by the idea of masculinity. And I think that in getting into this, and this is not exclusive to tarot, which is why I think I'm going to make it just more so about spiritual spheres, just because us and people that tend to gravitate toward more, I mean, I would not say that tarot is specifically a spiritual tool, but that it's often associated with those, and I think that that's pretty safe to say that even if you don't use it for that purpose, that you understand or acknowledge that that's oh, my dog, that is something that a lot of people use it for, or that there's just an element of overlap. So I'm referencing this in terms of the spiritual sphere, because it's where I see, well, it's where I sort of function through in these spheres, and then also where I sort of notice what feels to me like a lacking. I mean, this is based on the time that I've spent in various YouTube communities, watching and interacting, and content creators, and as far as people that read tarot, I mean, I am a reader in my area, and I don't really interact too much with other readers, although I know of a bunch, and a lot of them um, are women, and that's really awesome. So I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. I'm just saying that this is a more female or women or feminine um, dominant area, tarot and spirituality, and that makes sense, and I think that that's also a really awesome thing. I think it's super necessary, and I think that um, spirituality itself and those intuitive type practices and that involve deeper feeling come a lot more naturally to those that are very in touch with, and I'm using feminine and masculine for the sake of the fact that those are easy terms to use. If you use other terms or you don't enjoy the use of those terms, I understand. In fact, yeah, I would love to use other terms, but I just think for the sake of this video that it's easier. Um, so yeah, those. like spiritual type and centered businesses and practices and things like that tend to be um, where it's a female dominated industry or area, and it to me that makes actually a lot of sense just based on the associations with certain feminine type qualities and the fact that of course somebody who is a woman or is female um, might be more in touch and have like a greater propensity to be in touch with these uh, attributes within themselves. I mean, we look at tarot and what we're essentially doing when we're tapping into a tarot deck or looking for answers is we are embodying the high priestess. I mean, that's arguably we are embodying the high priestess. We're trying to use our intuition, we're trying to use our inner knowing. If you're spiritual, maybe accessing something beyond. And she is seen as essentially the pinnacle of receptivity, femininity, and all that that can sort of create. I was trying to look for the card. But so yeah, I mean, you look at tarot, and when you're using tarot, the major archetype that you're trying to get in touch with in order to successfully divine answers and knowing is that of the high priestess, which is a feminine archetype. Uh, and it also stands to reason that I know that for a lot of us, myself included, a lot of cards that we struggle with are the ones that have that innate masculine energy, and deciding or reconciling what we see as, I guess, shadow aspects, or you might call them shadow aspects, or just the darker converse side to what the card is all about, can be really difficult. I know personally I had a lot of trouble for a really long time, really feeling okay with the Emperor card, the Hierophant. I'm trying to think what else. Ones that are seen as very powerful, masculine, outwardly expressive of masculine type attributes, those cards. And those can be difficult. And I mean, I think that anybody who is trying to tap into their intuition, even just attempting or exercising sort of more spiritual, open-minded, fluid beliefs, is already tapping into an aspect of femininity just in doing that. I don't think that that's something that we would generally associate with archetypal or the idea of what masculinity is. And that's not a bad thing. I mean, there's a lot on either spectrum as far as these two, I don't want to call them stereotypes because they're not stereotypes, they're almost systems or sides of a coin. So it stands to reason that that spiritual and spiritual endeavors, things like intuition, tarot, are innately more feminine. So that, in my mind, sort of explains that. But I think that a lot of us recognize and understand the need for like the balance of the feminine and the masculine, and to reconcile any feelings of hurt or pain or fear that are associated with masculinity. We often toss around the term now, and this I would just say is in society and by and large, of toxic masculinity, which is very pervasive and something that very much is, I'm very happy it's being addressed, and there's a lot more work there to go. But I do think that it's easy and it's a slippery slope, and of falling into just associating masculinity itself with negative connotations, and just almost considering masculinity itself as a concept or as an aspect of the self to be toxic. And I don't think that that's the case, and I think that both the as Jung might put it, the anima and animus, there needs to be a balance, and we can't just have one. They do need to exist in harmony and in balance, and there are times for one, there are times for the other, and um, there are certain areas of life and tasks when one may be what is called for, and the other needs to take a step back, and vice versa. So uh, I do think that in spirituality and specific like tarot and other practices, that it is often that more feminine and divine feminine and the anima need to be drawn upon for a lot of the work that needs to be done. Uh, it's not one where you need to sort of rouse this structured, fiery, uh, bulldozing, loud and boisterous things that you might associate more so, or now I even sound like I'm speaking negatively on masculinity, but um, the more feminine aspects are what yields results and allows you to tap into a lot of these things. Um, but that being said, there is still a place for masculinity in just that. And see, this is something that this is a brainstorm, this is a think tank right now. Like, I don't have the answers. I'm not going to have this succinct talk that reaches a conclusion with a very poignant message and lesson. That's not how I don't think how life works, and I don't think that our ideas necessarily need to be so finite, and our opinions and thoughts need to have these finely trimmed edges. If anything, I think that leaving them open and understanding that there's more to be formed and more information to be gleaned is so important. And I know that my beliefs and thoughts and opinions and ideas are constantly shifting and changing based on others and things that I read and my experiences in the world and introspective type experiences, dialogue with myself. So there is no point per se, just maybe to, other than drawing awareness or starting a dialogues about masculinity in spiritual communities and in that sort of realm of thought. Specifically, I guess, in terms of tarot, just because that's a really big one for me. But I don't want to limit it to that at all, and I don't even want to limit it to spirituality. But I think that we have to draw a little bit of a line. That way it's not, it would be really difficult to speak on masculinity as a whole, although I think I'm doing that in just, I'm speaking of it like a facet of it, but that facet speaks to the larger whole of it. So, but it's an easier chunk to bite off. Anyway, there will be a lot of tangents. Yes, so just I guess this idea was spurred by just wanting or having a yearning for or realizing that there are a great number of decks and creators that are based around the divine feminine and femininity and goddess energy and things of that nature, and very few centered around things like the divine masculine that promote just understanding of and embodying and getting in touch with that. And I think that there's room for both, and I think that we need both, and I just think that there doesn't need to be any less of one for the other to have a place. But it would be really nice to see more masculine type decks, to just see that masculinity as an aspect of the self being, I guess, promoted in a more positive, healing, necessary light, and just that understanding surrounding it and that balance would be really awesome. It's one, honestly, as somebody who practices tarot, it was more so trying to find and reconcile my issues with masculinity, and those took a while, and I think that that's the case for a lot of us, based on what I've seen in videos and cards that people have trouble with, and archetypes, and just like in general, things that I've seen. So I think that that's something that we can all relate to, whether you are a man or a woman or whatever you identify as. I don't want this to be specific to gender either. Uh, yeah, it's not about that. It's about just those aspects of self, and I'm just using the terms masculine and feminine for because it's easier, and it just makes it easier to digest and to like. We all have those notions of what those concepts are, so rather than try to redefine them here, I think that could be its own video. But yeah, I would just really like to see more. I mean, there is the I spoke a little bit on this in the my 7 guides video, which is where I sort of started to gain inspiration for this. There's the Divine Masculine deck coming out, and I backed it, and I'm really excited for it. And I've looked into all the stuff that they have surrounding that, and I like it, but it's not what I per se would want to see in a deck about like divine masculinity or masculinity as a concept and how it's I guess personified and depicted. The artwork is stunning. I don't think there's anything wrong with the deck. I think that for some people it'll be spot on with what they need in terms of masculinity and getting in touch with that and understanding it and working with it. But based on what I've seen, I do think I'll enjoy the deck, but I don't think that it's right on the mark. And I think that, for example, there are just so many feminine decks that focus on divine femininity that if I don't like one, there's another 10 over there that I can go to and see if they might work for me and that if they fit that role. And the fact that we don't have that in terms of the concept of masculinity, how we are just getting this deck, and I'm not saying that there's none out there. There might be, but you'd be hard pressed to find many. Just that, yeah, there isn't really that option, and we're getting one, and it's not a one-size-fits-all sort of thing. As we all know with pretty much anything, there is not a one-size-fits-all solution to anything. Everybody's going to need something different, and just promoting sounds like a really exploitative marketing type term, but just having the dialogue about masculinity in spiritual spaces and within the tarot community, I think is really important. I think that it's something that like a lot of us have a really awesome things to say, and I think that it would be nice. I'd love to hear what other people have to say on this topic personally, and I think a lot of people have more can offer more insight, can offer perspective. I'd love to see somebody who doesn't identify as a man speak on this personally, or to even speak on femininity, or to speak on just like, I guess, abolishing that sort of divide between the two and how we see that. I want to know more. I'd love to hear people's voices where these things are concerned. And I think that there are a lot of valuable opinions out there, and I personally am a little bit scared to post something like this because I know how controversial and loaded and how deep these issues can run, and I know that there is a lot of pain associated with the darker aspects of masculinity. So this was not meant to be a pro-masculinity, down with femininity at all, and I hope that that's not how it will be taken. More so just some musings of my own on the need for dialogue surrounding it. So please feel free to comment, make videos, let me know what you guys think, and I hope you guys are having a nice day. I'll see you guys soon. Bye.